You are watching WhatsApp Punta Cana with Christy Maggio, una americana italiana en la República Dominicana since 2013. A teacher at heart, but her curiosity has sparked new opportunities. Director, businesswoman, humanitarian, talk show host. La curiosa directora has decided to become the student. Go behind the scenes to get a closer look at what this country is all about. And Cher is here with you. So, if you love everything Dominicana, stay tuned. This is WhatsApp Punta Cana with Christy Maggio.
Welcome to What's Up Punta Cana with Christy Maggio. I am really excited to have you here today. We're here today with Bob Doyle, who is one of the you have one of the masters in the law of attraction, and best probably known for being in the movie The Secret when it first came out, but then you are now in the sequel of How Thoughts Become Things, and you have you're amazing in how in your insight on this. And I'm really excited to have you here today on the show. So I thank you so much for participating in this. And I'm sure you can do a much better introduction than I can about yourself. And however, I would love to know your background. Like, how did you get into this realm?
Yes, well, it was not. I didn't see it coming. It certainly wasn't any sort of a career goal of mine at all. I was always grooming myself to be a broadcaster. I still love to do broadcasting, and that's my creative outlet. I get to do a lot of things through broadcasting that I love. But back in the day, it wasn't as easy to find the outlet. There wasn't the internet. There wasn't live streaming. I couldn't just say, "Hey, I've got a show," and have it where people could watch it. I had to get a job at a radio station and play by their rules, and I didn't like it one little bit. And I just couldn't, I wasn't able to really do all the things I really wanted to do. So I kind of got frustrated, and it was like, well, this is what I've always wanted to do, and now I don't know. So I was jumping around from career to career and trying business ideas, and tried to start businesses, and because I knew I wasn't a very good employee, because I did just want to do my thing, but I wasn't having any success, and I had a huge amount of debt and all of this, and that's when I started looking down more metaphysical paths for some kind of an answer, because all the logical stuff wasn't working. So I learned about meditation and visualization, and just really the whole concept of creating your reality, or however you want to phrase it. And I was super intrigued, and it really lit something up in me. And so I just started studying that, not having really great results, until at one point I had quit my job. I was super in debt. We had all sorts of money problems, and I'm trying to do all this stuff, and I'd read everything, and I finally found some material that was more quantum physics based, and it talked about basically the energy of our thoughts, and that they actually have an impact out there, And when I really got that, it was a huge aha, and it had me look at there's what I'm saying I want, and then there's what I'm really believing inside, what's really wired in me. And so when I looked at that, I knew I had to change my conversation on a different level. And when I did that, then that's when things started changing. And long story short, as I started to get results, I started sharing, because I knew I had tried all these different business ideas, including getting online and doing interviews. So I knew how to create a program basically and get it out there. So I did that. And it was that program that grew over the course of years that the producers of The Secret found online. And I think that, they just looked at it and said, we want that voice in there. Because I'm trying to come from a very grounded place, use just enough science that it's not mind-boggling, but I want to make it accessible to people who were like me, who weren't necessarily a new agey person, but open. Just show me some evidence, and I'm all in. I wasn't like this. I wasn't like doubting it. I was just like wanting the aha moments. And when I got that, I just turned it around and started communicating it my way out there.
And what year was this? Like how?
That would have been, well, I started the thing in 2002. That was when I had my big ahas.
And so what program did you begin with? What program did you initially create?
The Wealth Beyond Reason program was my first program, and it started with like 5 ebooks that I didn't even write. I collected them from people who had provided information to me, and I got their permission, of course, and they were happy to do it. And then there were a few audios that I had created from my own point of view. Basically, here's why I'm doing this. Here's what I've learned so far. Now in there, after I launched it, I sort of made a different level of declaration to myself about who I'm going to be in this. Rather than just a facilitator, I would like to be a source of knowledge, so I changed my I am statement. And instead of saying one day I'll be whatever, today I am an effective communicator of these principles to as many willing, open minds as possible. And once I declared that for myself, that's when I really started getting all these downloads. It was just like so much information. It was nonstop. Did a ton of interviews, and that thing grew into a monster. I mean, it's a vast law of attraction resource. It's still out there. I just haven't really promoted a lot of it lately because I feel like the whole conversation's gotten overcomplicated, and people have really, especially after The Secret and all these programs came out, here's how you do it. It's this way. And then another program says, no, it's this way. And then it's this way, but you have to do this first. And and it got so crazy, that people gave up on it. They weren't getting results, of course, because the information was just bad. It was just bad and certainly not complete. And so, the conversation around what I was doing changed. It was all about resistance and just different. So recently I have shifted all of that to focusing on the biology of this, our brain and our wiring, because when it comes down to it, all of that, you could call it woo-woo, but the energy stuff, the vibration stuff, while it's there, it's valid. I'll still talk about it to whoever wants to talk about it. A lot of people have a problem accessing it because they're not familiar, but their brain and science about wiring and neuroplasticity, they can get. It's proven. It's right there. There's nothing to debate. So now I'm really positioning this whole conversation is that no matter what's going on, your experience of reality is determined by your brain's wiring. That's where you make meaning out of everything. Do you enjoy this experience? Do you feel possibility? Do you feel disempowered, empowered, in love? Do you feel of hate? All of it is based on how you're interpreting this input of energy that is the universe, whatever. But that's all determined by your wiring, how you've been programmed throughout your life. And nobody is the same. Every single person is looking at the world completely differently. There's places we overlap, certainly. But then there are other areas where this wiring will not mesh with this wiring. And that's where you get these insane disagreements where this side cannot possibly see where this side is coming from and vice versa. There's no truth to any of it. It's all about how we're interpreting whatever.
So what do you feel like is the first step then that a person who wants to have this success, wants to rewire their brain, wants to believe in the law of attraction, which I completely do, but somebody out there that's listening to this right now, how do they get the old out and the new in, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if they're struggling with believing in the law of attraction, I would say just put that on pause. It is not necessary. That's really where I'm at with this. I love talking about it, and it helped me to get results, but you don't have to understand it for any of this that I'm about to say to make any sense or have impact. If you want to change your wiring, thus the way that you see and experience the world, right? So you're going to have to literally get in there and send your brain different signals, different communications, because you've been wired your whole life, mostly unconsciously at the beginning, right? We didn't know that we could assess all this information and decide whether or not that's in alignment with who we really want to be. Right. We were just like saying yes to everything. And so now we're wired, and so our environment and our parents and our teachers and the stuff we watched on TV, everything is into it. And it's really, really solid. And like I said, it shapes how we see the world, which is our truth, our undeniable, this is how it is truth, which is not truth at all. It's your truth, and this person's truth is different than this person's truth. So if you want your experience of reality to change, it means that you're going to have to interpret things differently, make new meaning out of signals that you get, and take different action. But how do you know what to take? Well, you have to first decide, who do you want to be? Who you're being right now has attracted, if you will, through your actions and everything you've done, exactly what you have. So if you want something different, you have to be something different. This is not it's just a fact. And look, you've been different people your whole life. You just haven't noticed it.
Mm-hmm.
As you've matured, you've become different. As you've learned new things, you've become different. Now we're just being conscious about it. We're taking what we've got, our brain, and all of its miraculous neuroplasticity, so that we truly can become someone else just because we say so. But we have to feed it new communication, unlike the ones we've been having. And it's going to take time, see, because we've collected this wiring our entire life. And people expect, oh, I watched The Secret, so 3 days later I should have everything, right? No, because you've got some biology to deal with. But knowing that it can change should give you great empowerment, great excitement. And so you just have to start telling yourself different things, because you are telling yourself things all the time about what is true through the meaning. You're not thinking those words, this is what this means, but you are. We have to become conscious about this if we want to do it intentionally. And that is the number one skill set I'm teaching right now, is to become conscious in the moment of an upset or a feeling of disempowerment, to realize this is just my wiring and I can choose something different. Not easy, but
Right.
possible.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a perfect example of that. Like this morning, I have a school here, but obviously we haven't been in school because of
Yeah.
coronavirus. And yesterday there were thieves, and they went in and they stole the freezer out of the school. My normal self would be like, what I grew up in is like, oh my God, I should, I can't believe this happened. Let me go and tell everybody, woe is me. But then I'm like, okay, it's a freezer. Nobody was hurt. Nobody, everything's fine. And maybe they needed it more than I did, So like.
So I absolutely commend you on that reframe. That's an excellent reframe. And yes, that's a great example of what is possible, because 95% of people are going to go off the handle automatically and feel completely justified, because you can justify your anger in that situation, given how society is and how we're wired. They took this thing, it's going to cost us money, blah, blah. You can absolutely go down that road, and it's going to produce a bunch of toxic chemicals, and you're going to feel like crap for a while your body metabolizes all of that. Or you can make a different choice, because it's not, as you know, getting angry isn't going to bring it back. Right. So you get to take charge of your experience of that moment and choose a different thought. I'll give you an example for me. Last week, my main computer, the one that I do everything on, literally burst into flames.
God.
So it's like, I knew in that moment that I had lost a lot, right? And I've been because had computers since I was 14. This is not my first time that I've lost it all, right? And I didn't have enough backups and the whole thing. So it was, I would have been justified in getting upset and going, oh my God, all this time, all the data, but in the moment, it was like, it was a strange, surrealistic sense of calm. And the first thing I thought was, finally, I get a new computer.
See? And it's true.
Putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And I had all these excuses, right? Well, this one's still, boom. Nope. Finally, I get my new computer. Yeah. And I knew, yes, it's going to be a hassle and all that, but it always works better when you rebuild. It's, but it was a choice.
Right.
It was a choice. But luckily these days, because I've been so conscious about being conscious, it's more automatic now to go to that more calm choice in these situations, which is a prime example of what I'm talking about. I would not have been that way 2 years ago. I would not have been that calm, but I've been being very conscious about my choices, and new wiring has been installed, and the old wiring literally withers away, and everybody can do this.
Right. But it has to become like a habit.
Yes, and it won't become a habit unless you're very inspired by this vision you have. So getting back to the original point, you have to decide who you want to be before you can decide with any accuracy what you want to have. Because if you're deciding all the things you want to have from this place where you maybe feel disempowered or you're in lack or whatever it is, that's not the place you want to start creating from, because your whole vision is going to be permeated with this feeling of there's a problem, right, that I'm trying to solve, rather than now you imagine your empowered self who handles all these these situations differently than they did before. They make different choices. They take different action. They're confident. People see it. You're attracting all of these things. I forgot how I was going to end that sentence, but I bet you know what I was going to say.
Absolutely. No, but it's true. It's true. And I think that, and like you said, a lot of people think, oh, well, it's just a magic thing. Like, and one of the things is that, as soon as you think something, it's going to happen, but it's not. It takes a lot of work. I mean, you can see small things happening.
Yes. So when you have that thought, when you have that desire, things do start happening, but you're not necessarily going to see them. Right. As long as you're holding that thought and holding the feeling of having it now, then you're doing now. That's when we jumped into the sort of quantum field, but that's when you're sending the signal of this is what is, and the universe is immediately responding. But we have to hold that so the communication stays the same, so that our alignment stays the same, so that we will continue the attraction process. On the real world, what that looks like is that you will continue to take inspired action and be in that place and show up in that way in real life, in the physical. No woo-woo necessary. But but that invisible stuff is definitely happening. And if you turn it off because something happens and you go, oh, and you just go right back to that old way, that old really strong wiring, then you're just going to reinforce that wiring and make it all the more difficult for it to change. It's about sending that consistently new signal.
Right.
It's not easy, and it takes support.
And it's not to mean that you're not going to have negative thoughts. Because
no, of course not. You're going to, and you should.
Right.
It propels you. It's a steering mechanism for your life. I mean, we have that whole range of emotions for a reason. We're not supposed to deny them, but we're not supposed to dwell in the negativity either.
It's how you react to them, I think, more so than okay, yes, this is negative. I have this thought, but okay, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to sit here and dwell on it and say, okay, well, nothing good is going to happen. I'm just going to go back to my whatever, or okay, well, this happened, but it could be this, or this much worse.
Right.
And then
all of that, yes. Anything to get you back into action, because people are so programmed because of the personal development industry to give something a certain amount of time or a certain number of tries, and then that's it.
Right.
But that's not how anything in the world, anything else gets done. Every invention on the planet takes hundreds, thousands of iterations or whatever to get it right. People don't go, oh, I failed after 3 times. I guess I'm not supposed to invent the automobile. Right. It's like you just keep going and you keep taking the feedback. The same is true of reinventing yourself. It's the same kind of persistence that needs to happen, but we just don't think about it that way because it's been packaged up and sold as this, hey, be here this weekend, 4 days, your life's going to transform. You can set the groundwork for sure. There are excellent programs. I hope that mine are excellent. But the point is that if you're not in alignment, if your brain isn't ready to take that information and make it a consistently new signal in there, nothing's going to happen.
It's an introduction. Those programs, like your program, other program, they're an introduction to getting you to try and think differently and do differently. However, there's work involved.
Yes. And look, the word work, there's action to take. There's time. There's input. You need to, your energy's going to move, right? You're not going to just sit there and not move energy. So you'll be doing some thinking, you'll be doing some moving, you'll be doing some creating, but it should all feel great, an expression of who you are, because that's hopefully what you're moving towards. So everything you're doing is a step in that direction.
Right. Absolutely. So how was it working? How was it working in the sense of working on The Secret, and how was it working on how thoughts become things? What was the shift for you? Because I mean, there were a number of years difference in between filming The Secret and filming.
Yes, 14.
How did you evolve as in your mind, in your set?
Well, there was a lot that went on. I did definitely have a journey after The Secret. The biggest one I'll just touch on, but I could talk for a long time about it, was how after The Secret came out, because I hadn't really been a player in the personal development industry, I was just Bob Doyle doing this thing, and I'm sharing this program. Well, after The Secret, you know, now people are associating me with Jack and Bob and all the others who've been doing it for decades. And I kind of felt myself wedged into this Bob Doyle from The Secret thing. And I had an expectation that there were expectations of how I should show up. And the goofy, crazy broadcaster person that's not appropriate. So I had several years of struggling with like being authentically me, like with all of it. It's not that I was being inauthentic. It's just that I wasn't sharing the whole of me, the whole spectrum. I'm showing you with like 15% of the guy who can stand up and teach something with a little bit of humor thrown in, as opposed to the guy who would mostly use humor to do anything. Right. So that was a part of the journey, finding a way to bring me out, and live streaming changed that. When I could do Facebook Live and Periscope and all these other live streaming services, that's when I really got to be able to find myself and find the way that I can teach this stuff and still be me.
Right.
You know, but so that was one arc. But I think that the biggest thing is, at the time of The Secret, like I said, I was talking a lot about energy and vibration and all the law of attraction-y type of stuff that people associate with it. And it's just been in the past couple of years where I've switched to focusing more on the wiring, the biology, because it's just more accessible, right? And it just makes sense. You don't have to, whenever I'm teaching people about rewiring, I will throw the law of attraction stuff in there as subtext, but it's not the main event.
Right.
You know, because you don't have to buy into it at all for your brain to change with consistent signals. And you still want to create a vision of who your most empowered self and what you want, and that will drive your actions. And you don't need to know that there's all this other invisible stuff orchestrating all of these synergies to make this happen for you. Mm-hmm. But it's cool to know, but you don't have to.
Absolutely.
So it's just a more grounded approach to it. That's why I like the opportunity to be in this film, to kind of do both sides.
Mm-hmm. And so when people say, okay, can thoughts become things? If I think it, will it manifest into something?
Well, if you don't think it, I promise you it won't. I mean,
right.
It all starts with the thought. Of course, thoughts become things, but it's a process of moving energy around. Once the energy of that thought comes to you, now what? Now you move into action. You know, you tell somebody, you make a design, you start, and you're taking action, you're telling people, and you're taking action, and you're envisioning it, and all of that. So yes, the thought will always become a thing after certain things occur. But it's not, you know, while people go, well, that's an easy out. No, because for most people, they stop. They don't finish it. Mm-hmm. They don't. It sounds easy, but it's not, because you get up against the wiring, and that's just where you have grown to. And most people think, well, this is all I got. You've got infinity left. I mean, our brain has so much room to grow. So, but you just have to start feeding it new stuff. And remember, it has been being fed for years. Right. Unconsciously, with no filter, nothing to stop it, no assessment at all. And that's why it's in there. And that's why it seems so real. But if you don't feel empowered and you don't believe you can do, be, or have what you want, I promise you, it's only because you're wired to think that way. And you can wire to think a different way.
Well, sure. Because a lot of people are like, well, you know, and I mean, I even do it myself. You know, I'm here, I do this, but I also am in education. I'm like, yeah, somebody's probably already thought of that. You know, if I were to write this art, you know, and then I have to say, no, you know, well, maybe not. Maybe this is a valid point, but, you know, and I'm somebody that, you know, I'm fairly confident in myself, but you always, like, there are those thoughts that like, oh, you know, no one's going to be interested in this, or this isn't state of the art. Somebody probably already thought of it and I never even saw it yet, you know.
Right. And here's how I coach people like that, because that happens all the time. Well, first of all, I would say, yes, lots of people do the same thing, but only you can do it the way you do it. Mm-hmm. And you're going to attract a specific person because of your energy and how you interact and the whole thing. Not everybody's going to want to buy your thing from somebody else. They're going to want to buy it from you for all those invisible reasons. Now, the other thing is that, you know, sometimes it's not about that thing that you are saying, well, someone's already done it. You're going to move on to something better than that or bigger than that, but not until you do that. So it's not about like, this is the end result and somebody else is going to do it. The thing doesn't have to succeed. We have to stop attaching that this is the part of this journey that's going to bring me to success. We don't know that until it happens. We just know it's there to do. So you do it because it's there to do. And maybe in the doing of it, you have an insight of a way you can do it that is very different than anybody else. But you never would have gotten that insight had you not sat down to freaking do it. So not doing it because, well, somebody else has already done it. That is irrelevant, because maybe no one's going to see what you're about to sit down and type except for you, or do whatever action. But you're going to get to a point in your journey where you get a new thing that you would not have gotten without taking that. So that's a part about taking inspired action and following your intuition without assessing, how is that going to get me there?
Right.
There's no way for you to know a lot of the time. There's no way you can possibly know. It's just for you to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. No, and that is really important for people, myself, others, to just get rid of those negative thoughts. If it's something that you feel is important, something that you feel is worthy, and especially if it's something that you love to do, even more so, then that's going to even ultimately bring you to a whole other level.
Yeah, people forget that the purpose of our life is to enjoy it, to have more positive feelings than negative feelings. So this whole idea of like, well, I'm not making time to do the thing I love because it's not making me money, you've completely missed the point.
Right.
Because money is not the part of the life that is the happy part. It can buy things that make you happy. I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't. But happiness is it's completely an inside job. It's all about the wiring. And if there is something that you can do that doesn't cost you money that makes you happy, so what if it's making you money? Just do it, because it's in you. Play the ukulele, or draw that picture, or make a sandcastle. I don't know.
Right.
But give yourself that gift, because that's why we're here.
Absolutely. And eventually the idea is that, it may not present it to you at that moment, but if you can be inspired as you're playing the ukulele, or as you're drawing that art or whatever, that who knows what will come into your life at that moment, because you are doing what you love.
Yes, and you're present, and you're not thinking about all the crap. Those moments of creativity are when you're in the best flow, and you will most likely you're in a creative state, so you'll have creative solutions to problems that you have that there's no way your brain will give you access to when you're sitting in fear and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
You just won't have access to that kind of creativity.
Right. Absolutely. And that is, I think, really important and really key to what people are doing. Because I think nowadays, maybe things have changed a little bit now with, people being at home for a while, and people kind of reflecting a little bit, and maybe trying to reinvent themselves, and hopefully not go back to what it was. If they weren't happy, not go back to what it was that was not making them happy.
Right. Yeah, we do have an opportunity here for sure. Everybody's saying it, and it is true, but it is going to be on each of us to not go back to the old way of thinking, just because our old patterns start to show back up again. But again, see, if things had just gone how they're supposed to, in other words, we're born and our passions are clear and they are cultivated by those who are bringing us up, and we're just always playing to our strengths and encouraged to do that, it's a totally different world, and there's not so much to untangle and unwind. But my God, that's not how it is. And most adults are really messed up in there about career and identity and who they are, because it's all been tangled up by the system of education, and how we're treated when we do express ourselves, and what's bad and what's not appropriate. And so it's no wonder that the coaching industry is so freaking huge, because there's a lot of untangling to do.
Right. There's a tangled web that has been weaved, so to speak. But it's one of those things that I think that is really very, very true, especially in raising children and growing up. A lot of times parents don't, okay, well, I don't want my child to do this, or I don't want them to do this. or I want them to do this because they're going to be the next NHL player, but they really don't want to be the next, they just enjoy playing, but they don't really aren't that into it. And I think that is really important, because a lot of times we are molded by what quote unquote society thinks is the best way for us to be,
Yeah, absolutely. And our parents, if our parents bought into what society is dishing out, or they have their own unfulfilled dreams that they now want to see through, vicariously through their children, which is very common, then they will try to push. Now, here's the thing I always say about the parents, because I deal with a lot of adults who have trouble with their transformation or making a big life change because of what their parents will say. Sometimes even when their parents have already passed on, right? That whole, I'm betraying this. And it's unfortunate, because parents do tend to somehow, at some point, they try to direct too much who the child will be. My belief as a parent of 3 is that, we're here to guide the children, teach them the basic stuff, the basic fundamentals of life, keep them alive, keep them happy, all that basic stuff, up to the point, I think, and all of that is appropriate, and stepping in and doing those things up to the point where we start trying to direct who they be. Like, we don't like who they're becoming, or the things that they're expressing an interest in, or any of those other things. If we start finding ourselves wanting to change that, now we're up against our own stuff. Now, most parents are not anywhere near conscious enough to realize that. And they see that, oh no, this is not going to be good for them. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to correct this right now. I'll put this, but it's really more about their own experience. We are here with this is where we all get off track. When someone steps in and tells us who we're going to be, which is different than who we want to be. I really don't believe people are born evil and, like that's who they want to be. I do believe that a lot of repression of self-expression can cause a lot of messed up heads. And in most adults, it's just anxiety and depression and unexplained sadness, because they're not expressing who they want to be. They don't know that's why, but that's why. They just don't, they're not living the life they're here to be. Other people, it affects way more deeply. And the teenage years, I believe that a lot of the rebellion is about the fact that they're being told that they can't be who they want to be, because that's when they start to express themselves. But you can't do that in school. You can't do that in this environment. You can't do this to me. You're disrespecting, whatever it is. We say, no, you can't be that. And now, it gets hold up, but they don't know who they are. They feel like it's bad to be them. Of course, they're going to rebel. Of course, as soon as they realize that rebellion is a thing, they're going to do it. Right. And some people, that goes into adulthood and they get all twisted up, and we have real problem people out there. But I still feel like it's somewhere along the line, somebody told them they can't be who they're here to be.
Right. Absolutely. And that's very true. And I think that it has, a lot of things. Now, I mean, I also accept that there's certain points where, you need to protect your child. I mean, nowadays there's a lot more than like when I was growing up, when you were growing up, where we didn't have social media or all of these other things that are confronted or, in front of today. But I mean, even the other day, I even had one of my students say to me that, I can't cry. I'm not supposed to cry. I'm like, well, who said? I said, if you feel sad, anybody can cry. And so, I mean, obviously, you basically know where that comes from. And that is really heartbreaking, that he can't show that kind of emotion in his home. Yeah. Right. So I think that's really important. And I think that's really important in what you're saying, as far as breaking down the conditioned state that people have in their mind. I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, because this is what I was told that this is what, in order to have a good life.
Yeah. I think that the reason most people don't have the life that they truly want is because somewhere along the line, they're not valuing themselves enough, right? They just don't understand their value, and they're not asking for it, or they're playing small. Their vision isn't big enough. Like, they've got so much potential, but somewhere along the line, they've learned that who they are isn't enough, and they've bought into that story.
Mhm.
And so you can be excited and you can post inspirational quotes and you can do all of these wonderful things and watch The Secret 100 million gazillion times. But if you don't have self-love or have a sense of self-value, then you're basically telling the universe is I don't deserve it. And deserving has no part of this manifestation thing. You don't have to deserve any bit of this. Deserving is a completely man-made concept.
Mhm.
And it has nothing to do with whether or not you get things in your life, except to the extent that you decide that you don't deserve it. And therefore, who you're being and the energy you're putting out will absolutely repel it.
Mhm. Absolutely. Because no matter what you do or what you say, and one of my favorite quotes in the world is whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way you're right, you know? So ultimately it comes down to that, and just getting people to ultimately believe that they can. You don't need to see a way. You don't even know how. Sometimes you might not even know how. It's just initially first believing that you can probably would be a
Yeah,
very
if
important
people could
step.
just get the idea, if people could just get the idea that this whole idea of I can, it's the only thing that's stopping you from accomplishing anything is stopping. Most of the time there's more to learn, there's more to do, there's more people to meet, but it's not that it's impossible. It's just that you at some point you stop taking action. Oh well, that I'm not that person, I can't make that phone call.
Mhm.
Then become that person.
Right.
Figure out a way to become that person. What does that person look like? What do they eat? What do they sleep? What are their exercise habits? If you want to get where you want to go and you need to be that person to get there, then freaking be that person. You can. The wiring can change. How bad do you want it? It's
Mhm.
going to be uncomfortable, absolutely, because you're up against your wiring, and wiring and growth is always uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable when we fell down a million times learning to walk. It was uncomfortable getting yelled at when we were learning how to drive, learning the language. It's all learning is uncomfortable. It's new wiring. But in this case, somehow, personal development, we go, oh, I can't be uncomfortable. So I quit. So
Right.
I can just have constant discomfort, this low-lying discomfort and dissatisfaction with my life that I've at least become comfortable enough with.
Right.
But I just can't be that guy to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
But what if you could? And then you could take the next step and the next step. And your thing is just 3 steps away.
Right.
Now, but I can't make that phone call. I'm not that guy. Then
Mhm.
become that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. It's all about that first step and just believing in yourself for that
Well, just
moment.
knowing you can change. If there's a part of you that is not stepping up to the plate, it is not permanent. You
Right.
can change it, but you got to know why you're changing it. So you keep going and keep going, even when it gets difficult.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to, and it's time and time again. Like you look at, was it Thomas Edison? How many times did he fail at the light bulb? I think
Yeah.
it was almost 1,000. Or
You hear 10,000. It's just a lot. It's just a
exactly.
lot.
It's not like they did it, once and boom. I was just reading a story the other day, and about um, the guy whose last name was Bentley, and about how he did the analyze the snowflakes, and he's the one that figured out the snowflakes were all different, none were the same,
Okay.
all that stuff. And it was years and years of trying to trap the snowflakes so it wouldn't melt. So we had the mic, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Things you don't think about. Yeah.
it was one of those things that okay, well, it obviously it had to be a passion of his
Yes.
in order to do that. So, but at the same time, for people to realize that also, it may not happen on the first time or the second time or the
No.
20th time.
Right. That's just not how anything works. Everything evolves.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, there are iterations and iterations and iterations, and species come and they go and they die out, and the whole thing, everything. But again, it's just, if we could just see the truth of that and realize however it unfolds, it's perfect. As long as we are holding the vision and not going back and forth with all these limiting beliefs, which that's again, admittedly, that's the harder part of this process, is the
Right.
upfront work of rewiring yourself. But once you rewire yourself to think in these more effortlessly successful ways, everything's just going to be easier. So you just go through that discomfort so that you can get there, so that it can be easier. Otherwise, whatever discomfort you're feeling right now, it just is there forever because you're not changing anything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think also the important part too is because if it were just you and your dream, that would be one thing. But then you have all the naysayers, so to
Oh
speak,
yeah. Yep.
on the outside that like you just have to let it go because
Well, and that's so much easier said than done, right? I mean, that's the whole point about
absolutely.
that's the point is like the chances of a person learning this, however they learn it, and doing this all by themselves are so low. It's it's almost immeasurable in my opinion
Mhm.
because you're up against your wiring. And when the discomfort comes in, your wiring, you can call it your ego, whatever, is going to pop in and give you all the reasons why you cannot and should not do this thing.
Mhm.
And unless you have somebody who is there to say, hey, wait, it's your wiring, to reframe it. Let's look at it this way. Here's 10 different ways you could interpret it. Oh, those are silly. Well, they're just as valid as the one you're coming up with.
Right.
This is just the easy one you come up with because of your wiring. Let's come up with other ones. Let's come up with 5 more empowering ways to deal with it. They're not going to do that by themselves.
Right.
They're going to justify stopping and feeling right because, man, do we love to feel right. See, I told you I couldn't do it. And your wiring just gets stronger and stronger. And the next time you try, it's going to be all that much harder.
Mhm.
So coaching, a coaching group, some sort of support, you got to surround yourself with somebody who is going to help you through this first part. It's just, the odds are so against you. No matter how smart you are, no matter how conscious and present and how you know all this, it's still it's you and your brain.
Yeah.
It's going to give you what it's got.
To me, I like to put it in kind of in comparison with people who go on a diet, you know, like they in the sense of, you know, okay, well, I'm going to do this, great, but without that support, without that anything, and unless it becomes a habit, because really a diet doesn't work, you know, it comes in and it goes out.
It has to be a lifestyle, right?
It has to be a lifestyle, and this is the same idea and the same concept.
It is exactly the same idea. The way of thinking and the way of being has to be a lifestyle. Right now, you don't know it, you don't think about it, but you have a lifestyle of complaining, you have a lifestyle of giving up, you have a lifestyle of avoiding discomfort so much that you will not grow. Right? This is just who you've become, and we're all guilty of it to some extent. I mean, we are, because there's always potential to grow. So we always, if we're where we are, it's because we kind of stalled out for a bit. We're hanging here, we're enjoying it, whatever. There's nothing wrong with it until we start feeling that feeling of there's something wrong here.
Mhm.
I'm not growing. I need to grow some more. Right? And that's natural. The universe, by nature, is expanding. It's all about expansion, and we are an inherent part of it, an inseparable part of it. So we also, our nature is to expand, and when we don't, we're going against our nature, and that's why it feels bad.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, this is so wonderful. I'm so excited. This is great. Any final thoughts that you would like to share? Anything new that you're going to be doing or coming up with that people can work with, follow, read?
Well, I am really, really committed to helping people with this rewiring piece. And anytime, like I said before, whenever I coach people, it's, there's the law of attraction piece in there too for the subtext, but I'm really about helping people define who they want to be. That's like the most important step. Things get so much easier. Things get so much easier when you have clarity on who you want to be. The stuff can get muddled. It's confusing. Well, why do I want that? It's because I learned that I want that from somewhere. When you're really clear on who you want to be, then that helps. So I have various ways that people can work with me with coaching. I have a whole webinar on this rewiring concept if people want to dig into that. The sort of hub for Bob is meetbobdoyle.com. But if you want to check out that rewire thing, which is what I'd really like to invite people to check out if they're interested in this whole transformation thing, or they're up against a wall, or they keep getting stopped, or whatever, just open their eyes a little bit more to this wiring conversation. You go meetbobdoyle.com/rewire.
Okay.
But then see the movie, watch How Thoughts Become Things, and just like let that get in there. See that there is a practical aspect to all of this. It doesn't have to be all woo-woo or secrety if that doesn't jive with you. Because some people it doesn't, It's a very practical thing that happens to have a really cool sort of unseen aspect to it, but you don't have to know, understand, or believe that part.
Right. Because I think it's just so important. And especially now when there's so many people in despair and think that, life can't change, or this is it, or when's normal going to come back? Well, unfortunately, there's no normal.
And all of these thoughts are their wiring.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever they're going in their head, it's because of their wiring. And if they're feeling down and depressed, like they're feeling out of control with their thoughts, like the whole world is just, not everybody's feeling that way. And that's because they have different wiring. And there are ways that you can escape this feeling of being trapped in this negative wiring, this spiral out of control. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You can change that. And it doesn't make you a bad person. And it doesn't mean you're ignoring reality or anything. It means you're taking care of yourself. Because until you take care of yourself and become the best self, then you're not putting out any value. You can't make at least you can't make the difference you could make in this world you're lamenting right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree 100%. So yeah. And it all starts with trying to change that. And like you said, people can say, okay, or hear this right now, and you're saying, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start thinking differently. But you need that extra step. You need that help. And if you're watching right now or you're listening, then Bob Doyle is the one to start you on that path and help you and coach you along the way, because I think it's really important, because what you hear today and the excitement of it then can get lost in the conundrum of daily life if you let it. So meetbobdoyle.com/rewiring.
Yeah. Or just rewire.
Meetbobdoyle.com/rewire. And if you really want to try and make a change and do something different in your life and really be the person that you want to be, and it doesn't matter how old you are, right? I mean,
no, but I will say,
you're never too old.
Yeah, you're not. Your brain can change. It does get slower as you get older, but that just means you just keep at it. I mean, but the younger we start, and that's a good thing for parents to realize that their kids right now are the most impressionable that they can be. So be conscious of what you're putting in there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I really appreciate the time that you took with me today. I really, really do. It's wonderful, and I am honored that you did do this with me today.
That's very nice of you to say. It's my pleasure, Christy. All right. We'll see you in Punta Cana.
All right. Okay. Sounds good.
Right,
bye, and take care. Have a wonderful evening.
Over a decade ago, you were told about a secret. This secret revealed one of the most powerful laws in the universe. And a window was opened for you to see endless possibilities. It expanded your views of who you are and what you could become. You saw before you incredible possibilities for abundance and wealth. You saw the key to improving relationships and stronger connections with those you love. You saw the path to recapture your health in miraculous ways and achieve the healthier lifestyle that you've always wanted. Perhaps most important, you saw that through this secret, you could gain a greater connection with yourself, your self-worth, and insights into how you could have everything that you want and desire. This secret was based on your thoughts and the power of your frequencies and feelings. Are you ready for the next step to be revealed?
Thinking is, in my opinion, the highest function that we're capable of. The problem is most people do not think. Although it's the highest function we're capable of, very few people do it.
Well, thought is really the creative force of our mind. When our mind, who is like the energy of the universe.
We have over 50,000 thoughts that percolate up from our subconscious minds based on the patterns that are the trillions of neural connections. Every book we've read, every movie we've seen, every interaction we've had, every experience that we've had, every idea, emotion, sensation that has been orchestrated and organized in our brain, specifically our subconscious brain and our memory center, is percolating up these unimaginable thoughts.
We live in an optical illusion. You don't see what is real, you see what you believe. What you're seeing is filtered through the belief system in your mind. It's filtered through your thoughts. If you happen to think that the world is a messy, desperate, despondent place, you will look into the world and you will find evidence to match your belief. You'll have your reality match your mindset.
If we look around us, pretty much everybody is on automatic pilot most of the time, unless you are a very good control of yourself, unless you are very intentional.
It's not just thoughts become things, it's how thoughts become things. And the how, well, that's the process. And become, well, those are the changes that you're going to be able to make.
Because as you show up powerfully in that way of being, the world will respond to you. You cannot be the old way and have the world respond differently to you. So the very first thing you have to know is, who am I in this?
And if you start to unwind where those thoughts came from and how they were truly imprinted in your subconscious mind, now all of a sudden you learn how to start controlling your thoughts and creating belief structures that are your own, that weren't just given to you, but that you're actually creating from inception. And that's how we start creating more and more of our own true success as we wake ourselves up to what we really want as we get later in life.
In other words, reality is different for every human being because reality is based on what we perceive, that we've heard secondhand from our family, that we've learned from our environment, and what it means to us.
What you believe to be true is true for you, but it's not necessarily based on reality.
Our thoughts become things, and our innermost dominant thought becomes our outermost tangible reality. And whatever you think about most, you bring about most in life.
Are you ready for the next step to be revealed?